The Frank Sinatra Jr. kidnapping, a bizarre celebrity crime. Imagine being the son of one of the most famous men in the world, only to find yourself at gunpoint, stuffed into the back of a car by strangers. That's exactly what happened to 19-year-old Frank Sinatra Jr. in December 1963. But this wasn't a master criminal at work. It was a bizarre, almost amateur attempt at a high-stakes heist. And yet, it left one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, Frank Sinatra Sr., shaken to his core. The plan was simple. In theory, kidnap Frank Jr., demand a ransom from his famous father, and walk away with $240,000. But the execution? Let's just say it played out more like a comedy of errors than a professional operation. Still, it was serious enough to spark an intense FBI investigation, leading to one of the most memorable cases of the 20th century. What drove these young kidnappers to take on such a reckless scheme? How did the FBI crack the case so quickly, and what lasting impact did it have on the Sinatra family? Stay tuned as we unravel the story of the Frank Sinatra Jr. kidnapping, a crime that shocked Hollywood and captivated the nation. December 8, 1963. Harrah's Lodge, South Lake Tahoe. Frank Sinatra Jr. is relaxing in his hotel room, preparing for a small concert later that night. At just 19 years old, he's following in his father's footsteps, building his music career one show at a time. But tonight, his music takes a backseat to something far more sinister. A knock at the door interrupts the quiet. Sinatra's friend and trumpet player answers, only to find two strangers standing there. Room service, they say, but before anyone can react, the men shove their way inside, pulling out guns. The room erupts in chaos as Frank Jr. is forced at gunpoint to follow the intruders out of the hotel. The kidnappers, Barry Keenan, Johnny Irwin, and Joe Amsler, bundle Sinatra into the backseat of a car and speed off into the night. Their plan is surprisingly crude. The young men have no real experience in crime, but they believe Sinatra Sr.'s fame and fortune will guarantee a payday. Little do they know, they're about to make mistake after mistake. The news of Frank Sinatra Jr.'s disappearance spreads quickly, throwing both the Sinatra family and the public into a frenzy. For Frank Sr., it's every parent's worst nightmare. But for the kidnappers, the trouble is only just beginning. The kidnappers wasted no time. They contacted Frank Sinatra Sr. the very next day, demanding $240,000 in ransom. In 1963, that was a staggering sum of money, equivalent to over $2 million today. But for Sinatra Sr., no price was too high to save his son. They insisted that all communication happen via payphones, a precaution meant to avoid FBI tracing. Sinatra Sr. scrambled to meet their demands, carrying a pocket full of dimes to make quick calls. Despite his fame and power, he was at the mercy of three bumbling amateurs. The kidnappers, meanwhile, struggled to keep their captive under control. They moved Sinatra Jr. from one location to another, worried they'd been spotted. The tension reached its peak when Sinatra Sr. managed to deliver the ransom in cash. But even after receiving the money, the kidnappers hesitated. Their amateur operation was quickly unraveling. They panicked and decided to release Frank Jr., dropping him off near Bel Air, California. Sinatra Jr. was unharmed, but the damage had already been done. While the Sinatra family breathed a sigh of relief, the FBI was already hot on the kidnappers' trail. For three inexperienced criminals, covering their tracks was impossible. Just days after the release, Barry Keenan, Johnny Irwin, and Joe Amsler began spending the ransom money carelessly. One of them even bragged about the crime to an acquaintance, a mistake that proved fatal to their operation. The FBI tracked down the trio within a week. Keenan and Amsler were arrested without incident, while Irwin surrendered shortly afterward. During interrogations, the young men confessed to the kidnapping, admitting they'd been inspired by Sinatra's wealth and public persona. The case, which had started as a national mystery, was now solved. The kidnappers were charged and convicted, but their sentences were surprisingly light given the severity of the crime. Barry Keenan, the mastermind, was sentenced to life in prison, but later had his sentence reduced. He was released after just a few years, claiming his actions were fueled by desperation and poor judgment rather than malice. For Frank Sinatra Sr., the ordeal left a lasting mark. He reportedly carried rolls of dimes with him for the rest of his life, a habit born out of his frantic calls to the kidnappers. The story captivated the public, cementing its place in true crime history as one of the strangest and most poorly executed celebrity kidnappings ever. As for Frank Sinatra Jr., he returned to his music career but remained haunted by the events of 1963. The case became a reminder of how even the rich and famous aren't immune to tragedy, and how crime doesn't always pay. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most gripping true crime cases. What do you think about the Sinatra Jr. kidnapping? Pure recklessness or something more sinister? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.